Hi guys, James back again with another video, and I thought I'd change locations again a little bit. I was discovering that I was a little bit of an echo out there in my living room. Less so in here. Anyway, if you clicked on this one, you know that it's Top 10 Dramas Part 3. And there were several movies, or at least a few movies on this list, that have been hanging around my head for a while, trying to put them, or fit them into different lists. And then I finally just decided, well, a lot of these have to do with drama, have some element of drama in them, and that it's actually been a while since I did the Top 10 Dramas Part 2. And while I try and space out the lists I have when I do, like, Dramas Part 1, 2, and now 3, Google Play Movies Part 1 and 2, or Horror Movies Part 1, 2, and 3, I try to space them out so that it's not just the same thing over and over again. And then there's sometimes, like the Google Play Movies, or the erotic thrillers, or the sex comedies, where I have more ideas, I want to get them out as quick as possible, or as close together as possible. And then sometimes it's just like I want to wait a bit. So I figured it had been long enough since I did Part 2 that I could do Part 3. And I may spoil a few of these, but as I've said before, the real enjoyment you're getting is from experiencing the movie as a whole, not just getting to the twist or whatever element of the movie that can be spoiled. So if I'm spoiling a movie, it's to show you that while the twist or hidden element may be good or shocking or dramatic or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't make up the whole film. The whole film is what you should experience. So even though you know what's going to happen, experiencing it as it happens, or experiencing what happens, I think is the more important part. Anyway, enough riffing about that. We will start with number 10. Number 10 is a film from 2001 called The Caveman's Valentine. This is a film by Casey Lemons, who is an actor and director. She was in, the one I remember most was that she was in the original Candyman. She was Bernadette. She was Virginia Madsen's colleague, university colleague in that one that gets killed. Spoiler. If you haven't seen the original Candyman by now, you really should. Anyway, she's also a director, and she directed this one. This one stars primarily Samuel L. Jackson as Romulus Ledbetter, and you also have Anthony Michael Hall in there, and Colin Feore, great Canadian actor. And this one centers around Sam Jackson's character, Romulus Ledbetter, who is a former student of Juilliard, genius pianist, but he left the school because he developed schizophrenia. So he's a paranoid schizophrenic homeless guy living out on the streets, and he's convinced that this evil corporate magnate is controlling the city's people with these mind rays or whatever. But he discovers a dead young man in Central Park, frozen to death, and he becomes embroiled in the murder investigation. And despite his affliction, he is determined to find out who murdered this young man and bring them down. So he gets himself invited to perform at a concert. Now, he can still play very well, but he's convinced that his mind is filled with these they call them moth-like seraphs. Like, you see shots of what's supposed to be in his head, and it's a bunch of these, like, gorgeous-looking actors with wings dancing around and stuff like that, and he can't focus. He loses focus and flips out and stuff like that. It's a pretty I would say, with a dark subject, but a beautiful-looking movie, and a genius performance by Samuel L. Jackson. You gotta see this one. So that is The Caveman's Valentine. Okay, number 9. Number 9, we have a film from 1994 called Intersection. And I remember seeing this one because I remember seeing previews about it being in the theater, and I rented it probably not long after. I think I was still in high school, late high school, early college, maybe. And this one stars primarily Richard Gere, Sharon Stone, and Lolita Davidovich. And Martin Landau is also in there. Jennifer Morrison, a very young Jennifer Morrison in there. One of the actors from House and various other movies. And it centers around Richard Gere, who plays an architect, and he's married to Sharon Stone's character, but he's also having an affair with a journalist played by Lolita Davidovich. And this one, okay, spoiler. This one opens with, like, if you read the synopsis on Wikipedia or something, you won't get this, but it opens with Richard Gere's character driving along, thinking about his life with Lolita Davidovich, the woman he's having an affair with, who he's in love with. He doesn't have a good marriage with Sharon Stone's character, and he swerves the wrong way. There's a truck jackknifing, and he's about to get in a massive car accident. Then it jumps back to some time before the crash, and it's also interesting because the movie will go along, and then he'll be thinking back. So you got a flashback within a flashback often in the movie, and his relationship with his wife, and how he's meeting his lover, and I believe Martin Landau plays his boss, or at least a good friend of his. It's been a long time since I watched this one. But I found the DVD years ago and made sure I held on to it. And it goes through basically the evolution of his relationship with Lolita Davidovich's character, and the de-evolution of his marriage to Sharon Stone's character. And the movie goes through that, and at the end of it, it ends with it going back to the car crash where he doesn't survive. And there's an amazing silent shot from a distance of Sharon Stone, the wife, being told that her husband has just died, and you just see her collapse. And what's interesting about it is he had decided that at one point he was going to break it off with his lover and go back to his wife, and then changed his mind and professed his love to his lover, and then he was going to leave his wife for her. Well, he left a message for his lover, Lolita Davidovich, and also wrote a letter to his wife. But when he dies, the lover doesn't tell the wife about the message, and the wife doesn't tell the lover about the note. He dies, and it ends basically with both of them believing that he truly loved them. So it's kind of a cathartic, melancholy, not a happy ending, but it ends with them having a sense of loving closure, I suppose. So, but as I said, starts with the crash about to happen, ends with the crash actually happening. He dies, but the meat of the movie is everything that happens in between the two relationships. So that's if you watch the movie, that's what I want you to focus on. Anyway, that's Intersection. Number 8, we have a film from 2015 called Tumble Down. There's another one I found on Google Play, which just barely missed both of my Google Play lists. It may have missed the first one because I hadn't watched it yet, but it missed the second one just barely because there was a few I liked more. And this one stars primarily Jason Sudeikis and Rebecca Hall. You've also got Diana Agron in there, Joe Manganiello, Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Griffin Dunn is in there. Richard Mazer, Blythe Danner. And you've got a woman played by Rebecca Hall who was married to a musician who has become sort of like a cult folk hero or something. He was like an acoustic musician who put out one amazingly great classic album and then died. He went out walking one night up on this rocky cliff and fell. He fell. It's implied that he possibly committed suicide, that he was depressed. No one ever says for sure. That's not a spoiler because he's dead before the movie starts. And Jason Sudeikis' character is a writer, and he wants to write a biography on her husband about his life. And she's very reluctant to let him do that, but they finally agree to co-author the book. And he works his way into her life, and they become very close. Like he has like dinner with not her family, but her late husband's family, who has sort of like welcomed her into theirs. And it's about how they get closer and like their working relationship and their personal relationship. And it's a great dramatic role with a little bit of comedy by Jason Sudeikis. Rebecca Hall, great dramatic role. And a funny role by Joe Manganiello. And she also has 2 dogs in the movie, 2 adorable boxers, and I love boxers. They are awesome in the movie. And it's just a great relationship drama. So that is Tumble Down. Tumble Down, I believe, is the nickname for the area where he fell and died. Okay, number 7. We have a film from, well, it says 2020, but it was released this year in 2021, and it's called Lorelei. And it's another one I found on Google Play. And this one is basically a pure dramatic acting piece for Pablo Schreiber, who, you know him from the 2nd season of The Wire, you know him from 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, and Den of Thieves. He was one of the main thieves in that movie. And it's an acting clinic he puts on in this movie. Now he's a former biker who was sent to prison for 15 years. Not really clear as to the crime, but it's not important. It's the fact that he went to prison for 15 years, didn't say a word, gets out of prison, and reconnects with his biker gang. He also reconnects with his high school girlfriend, played by Jenna Malone, who has 3 kids from 3 different guys, is an alcoholic, so she's going to AA, and that's where he finds her and meets up with her again. And they quickly start up their relationship again. He moves in with her to help take care of her and the kids while he's trying to find a job and struggle with meeting up with his parole officer and stuff. And they have their troubles, and he's trying to make ends meet. And then she, at some point, just decides, well, I've got him now, he's taking care of my kids, I need to pursue my dreams, because they always dreamed of going out to LA and walking on the beach and stuff. And just one day she up and leaves and goes to LA, leaving him in her house with her 3 kids, who like him a lot, but now they've been abandoned. And he has to decide if he's going to stay there with them or go after her, if he's even allowed to, because he has parole. He's on parole. He's not allowed to leave the state, so he has to work things out with his parole officer. And I will leave it at that, because whether he does or he doesn't is not the most important part. It's the pure acting ability this guy has in this movie. It's just awesome. So that is Lorelei. All right, number 6, we have a film from 2009 called Paperman. And this one's drama with some comedic elements mixed in. And this one stars Jeff Daniels, You've got Emma Stone, Ryan Reynolds, and let me see, it's Lisa Kudrow, Kieran Culkin, and it's Jeff Daniels is a writer who's written a book or two, and he has a bit of writer's block, so he goes out to this cabin. His wife takes him out there. His wife is Lisa Kudrow, and his wife takes him out there, and so he can write his new book. And he has this imaginary friend, this superhero named Captain Amazing, played by Ryan Reynolds. Hilarious role for him. And he's basically had him as an imaginary friend since he was a kid, and he's now a grown man into middle age. And he meets up with Emma Stone, who was just a young lady living in town, and he hires her as a babysitter. He doesn't have a baby. He just hires her as a babysitter to sort of keep an eye on him while he's working. It's a very odd relationship these two have. And she also has this friend played by Kieran Culkin, and they've been friends for years. And it's sort of his struggle to get his book done, become friends with Emma Stone's character, and if he can maybe pull away from his imaginary friend and sort of grow up. And I will stop myself there, because there's stuff about this movie that is fun to experience fresh. So I will not spoil the stuff for this movie, because it's a nice, there's some worthwhile reveals in there. But it is very dramatic and pretty funny. So that's Paperman. Excuse me. Number 5, we have a film from 2014 called Rudderless. Now, I was going to watch this one online, and then I ended up finding it on Google Play and picking it up. But this was one that was strongly recommended to me. I had been aware of the movie, not knowing what it was about, except something about music. But it fell off my radar, and it was strongly recommended to me by my friend Dalton. So thank you, Dalton. And I watched this one, and this one stars Billy Crudup, and primarily Billy Crudup, Anton Yelchin, Felicity Huffman, Selena Gomez is in there, and Lawrence Fishburne. And, okay, spoiler. This is another one where, yeah, there is a thing to spoil, but it's the movie itself that's important to experience, because you have Billy Crudup and Felicity Huffman as parents, and their son, played by, I can never remember his name, but he was he's from the show 13 Reasons Why. He's the one that attempts suicide and has like the cane for a while. William H. Macy is also in there. Jamie Chung. Let me see. Sorry. But you know, if you watch 13 Reasons Why, you know the kid I'm talking about. And Josh. The character's name is Josh, played by Miles Heiser. And he's a student at college. And then he's in college and he has these songs that he's written and recorded and stuff. And at some point, short time later, he dies. And it breaks up the marriage between Billy Crudup and Felicity Huffman. And Billy Crudup, who's like this big executive, basically lets his life fall apart. And he starts to bring it back in line when he discovers these songs that his late son, had written. And he begins to perform them in a local cafe. And he connects with Anton Yelchin, who's a musician, has a few guys that can form a band. And they get him to form a band, and they begin to perform these songs, not knowing that they were written by his late son. And they become very popular, and I don't know if they're offered a record contract, but they have a budding musical career ahead of them. The twist in this is when it's discovered later on. He goes to visit his son's grave, and it's been vandalized, and his wife his ex-wife is already there. And what's discovered is their son is dead because he was a trouble kid at school, and he did sort of it was a school shooting incident where he was the perpetrator. He shot a bunch of students and then killed himself. And the parents, it's a dark cloud over their heads and stuff like that. And so when Anton Yelchin and the other guys find out that he's been singing the son who was a killer, his songs, they cut him off and they want nothing to do with them. And it's a very emotional moment, and part of the movie that comes up for Billy Crudup's character. And like I said, I felt okay with spoiling that part because it's the pure acting by Billy Crudup that's important in this movie. Even though you know what's going to happen, you got to experience it. It's great. So that is Rudderless. Okay, number 4, we have a film from 2008 called Two Lovers. It was a film by James Gray starring Gwyneth Paltrow, Joaquin Phoenix, Vanessa Shaw. And this movie is notable for being the last movie that Joaquin Phoenix put out before he quote-unquote kind of went crazy and dropped out of Hollywood and tried to become a rapper and stuff like that, which was the subject of that documentary, I'm Not Here, which ended up being a mockumentary. It wasn't real. They were basically playing a prank and doing a fake documentary. But the movie got kind of buried because the movie was coming out and then this happened. So everyone ignored this film, which was a mistake because I think it is a tremendous piece of acting on the part of Joaquin Phoenix and Gwyneth Paltrow. Joaquin Phoenix basically is just a regular guy, and his family want. I think he's was he Orthodox Jewish? I think. So. And it's been a little while since I saw that, so I apologize. And his family basically wants him to meet another meet and marry this girl of their same faith, and that's Vanessa Shaw. But he meets this charming, lovely, and ultimately unstable woman played by Gwyneth Paltrow. And it's all about which woman is he going to choose to spend his life with, and which one is actually right for him, not just because what his parents are telling him to do, but what he discovers for himself. And it is very worthwhile. It is very much worth your time checking this one out. Because it was the follow-up to James Gray's film, We Own the Night, which was Mark Wahlberg, Robert Duvall, Joaquin Phoenix and stuff. And Joaquin Phoenix does just an equally great job in this film as he did in We Own the Night. It's just a very different film. And it was a shame that it got vastly overshadowed by the stunt they pulled, him and Casey Affleck. It was just still a decent documentary, but this is a great movie. So that's Two Lovers. All right, number 3, we have a film from 1997 called The End of Violence. This is a film by Wim Wenders, who did $1 Million Hotel, which I'm a big fan of it. And this one, it stars several people. You've got Bill Pullman, Andie MacDowell, Gabriel Byrne, Tracy Lynn, Rosalind Chow, Lauren Dean. Let me see. Pruitt Taylor Vince is in there, John Deal, Daniel Benzali, Frederick Forrest, Michael Massey. And it's not all about one person, but there is a famous Hollywood director played by Bill Pullman who just there's an attempt on his life and he vanishes, goes into hiding. And his wife, played by Andie MacDowell, sort of assumes or takes over his household and his business and stuff. And he's decided that he's going to stay hidden. He doesn't want any part of that life anymore. And then on the other side, you've got Gabriel Byrne, who works for this shadowy organization headed by Daniel Benzali. And they may or may not have had something to do with the attempt on Bill Pullman's character's life. And then on another side, you've got Lauren Dean as a cop who gets involved with Tracy Lynn's character. And Gabriel Byrne also has this, I think it's like this Latin housekeeper who keeps an eye on him where he's working at business. And it's just all these characters intersecting. And it's a very interesting story that gets woven through all these different groups of people that connect at some point in various parts of the film. So I'm not explaining it that well, but it is a very complicated story. So I don't have enough time to go through everything that's involved. It's just, it is a very, very complicated but very well told story and very well acted movie. It is The End of Violence. Now, number 2 is one that I was almost going to do a spotlight film on its own. It almost appeared on a coming-of-age film list, but I wasn't feeling very confident about that one, as I mentioned yesterday when I was talking about the sci-fi films part 2, that other list. And this one is from 2007. It's called Dog Days of Summer. And the most recognizable face in the movie is Will Patton. But it centers around 2 kids and Will Patton's character. Now you have an older version of the guy who comes into town, and he works for like the water company, and this decrepit abandoned town is there, and it was his hometown that he grew up in. And they're going to flood it to make a new lake and stuff. Sort of like in that film North Fork and Lost River and stuff. And it flashes, he's going through the town, it flashes back to when he was a kid with his friend growing up. And this guy comes to town, played by Will Patton, and his character is named, so it's Philip and Jackson are the 2 kids, and Eli Cottonmouth comes to town, and he has this little miniature, sort of like a flea circus or whatever, and he captures the town's attention and imagination. And they quickly offer him a deal where he will, for their, what do they call it? It's not bicentennial, it's bisesquicentennial. And I don't know that they explain exactly what that is, but it's some sort of like time period celebration. And he's going to build a scale model of the town that's unveiled during the ceremony as like a celebration, and they're going to pay him a lot of money to do it. But no one's allowed to see it until it's done. He works behind a closed door. And then the kids are very curious, and they keep poking their heads around, and he enlists their help taking pictures around town, because that's what he's been doing. And, okay, spoiler, although not really, just because this is a great movie to experience again, but it's not really a spoiler. There are certain things that have happened that are revealed to not be what they were. Like the one kid's dad is blind, and how he got that way and how their mother died is a question of mystery. And then you've also got the town pastor who may or may not have been involved in the disappearance or an affair with and disappearance of one of the kid's older sister. And that's something that comes to light because they finally do get in to the office after Eli leaves town. And what's revealed is an exact model of the town, but it's a very dark, corrupted version of the town. And it's never explained how he knew the town's secrets. Because, well, although he was around town a lot taking pictures, so he may have been witness, unbeknownst to everyone else, to a lot of secrets being kept and shared. But it's sort of, he reveals the dark underbelly of the town that's been sort of festering this whole time. And sort of brings it all to light. And the kids in this movie did a great job, and so did Will Patton as this mysterious drifter, I guess you'd call him. And this was just one I found in a used store. I'm like, oh, this seems interesting. Oh, it's well regarded, and Will Patton. And like hardly anyone knows about this film, and it is great. And the older version of the one kid also narrates the film, and he has a good voice for narration in this one. So that's Dog Days of Summer. Okay, wrapping this up, we have number 1. This is one I was going to do for if I could have outbreak films or pandemic films, but I couldn't get enough of those together. This was from 2020. This is last year. And this was a film that was written, shot, and released during the pandemic is still going on, but this was written during the initial lockdown last year. Written, produced, and released during the lockdown last year. And it's called Songbird. And it's a movie by Adam Mason, who did like Blood River and Devil's Chair and Broken and stuff. And it was produced by Michael Bay, but it stars KJ Alpa, Archie from Riverdale. But you've also got Craig Robinson in there, Bradley Whitford, Peter Stormare, Alexander Daddario, Paul Walter Hauser, who was in one of the Clint Eastwood movies from a year or two ago about the Atlanta bombing, where the security guard finds the bomb and then is accused of being the bomber and stuff. Richard Jewell. And this one is basically a worst case, a very, very much worst case scenario of what could happen to us now, where it's a few years in the future and it's like they're dealing with, and they call it like COVID, what is it? I think they call it COVID-23, and they're in the 4th pandemic year. But this disease kills you actually within a few days if you get, this virus kills you within a few days if you get it. And there's a few people who are immune to it, and they're called nicknamed Munies and stuff. And KJ Alpa's character is one of them, and he's a valuable individual because he's a messenger. He goes all over town picking up packages and delivering to them people who are sequestered in their homes. Oh, and you've also got Demi Moore is in there too. She's married to Bradley Whitford's character. And some people, Peter Stormare is also immune, but he also enforces and rounds up people who escape quarantine and sometimes executes them. You've got other characters who, Craig Robinson is KJ Alpa's boss, and other characters you've got who, Demi Moore and Bradley Whitford's characters can get these immunity passports or wristbands to get you to travel outside the city. You've got Paul Walter Hauser, who is a war veteran who basically is agoraphobic, and he stays inside his house. He won't leave, and he's video chats all the time with Alexander Daddario's character, who basically does kind of like stripping or sex work online, and she's developed a friendship with him, and they hope to meet one day. The movie looks fantastic. It looks like a Michael Bay shot film, but he produced it. But it looks like a Michael Bay shot film. It's that well made, and it's just it's one of the ones that just has very vibrant colors, but also great acting, especially from KJ Alpa and Sophia Carson, who's his love interest, and everyone else in the movie. It's just Very, very, very impressive. And you take Adam Mason's work that's been like, oh, good, 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 great, yeah, great. Some of the ones are great. Just takes it to a whole nother level in production value and quality. And I think it's by far the best thing he's ever done. But most of his stuff has been pretty great anyway. So, all right, I'll cut myself off there. That's all I have for this list. I hope you enjoyed it. So like, comment, subscribe. Suggestions are all welcome. And I'll see you next time. Toodles.